Hi there, Plant Girl here. So today I'm out in my garden and I'm going to be getting some of my warm season vegetables started here. So I'm going to be direct seeding some corn, some pumpkins, and some beans, I believe. And I also brought out a pack of zinnias. I bought another one. I may put some of those in because I think some of the zinnias that I direct seeded a few weeks ago, we got like really crazy cold even for here at the beginning of May. And I just don't think some of those seeds survived that. They maybe had started to germinate and then it got too cold. So even though they can handle some cool weather, I don't think they handled it all. So anyways, I'm gonna start with this bed here and like that I'm sitting on. This is a 4x8 raised bed, 4 feet by 8 feet. And it's raised up about a foot off the ground. My beds are filled with peat moss and composted manure and vermiculite, and then I've added in, my own homemade compost and just topped them up over the years. I think they're on, year 4, maybe now, maybe year 5, something like that. I just have like a weeping drip system that goes through them. So this is just kind of like a 1/4-inch weepy line of drip. And each bed has its own shut-off valve, so I can control which beds are getting watered and which are not. So I'm going to put corn in this side of this bed here. I always draw out a little map of where I want things planted. And so this side of this bed here is going to get corn planted in it and also some East Elite squash. So East Elite is a buttercup type squash and it's supposed to be a medium vining squash. So I'm hoping to just plant it in amongst the corn and we'll see what happens. I've never grown it before. I tend to space things pretty closely in my garden. So you need to remember if you're doing that, that you need to be make sure your plants are getting enough of the nutrients and the water that they need, and you need to be really on top of watching for disease and pests in close spaced setting like this. So that being said, to start this off, I'm going to get a bag of steer manure and spread it over this area just to get a good nutrient base started here. As the plants use up the nutrients that's in the bed, they'll be able to get more as it works its way into the soil. So I'm going to go grab that and get these things out of the way, and we'll get started. So I'm not sure if it's in your view or not, but this bed already has just a couple of Spanish candy onions here along the end, just a couple that I had left over, didn't fit in the other space. I've popped a couple of marigolds in at the end. And at the other opposite end, there's again some marigolds and some celery. There's 4 celery plants down there. With any warm season vegetable like corn, beans, your squashes, cucumber, things like that, you want to make sure that your soil is warm before you're planting your seeds or your starts into it. Generally about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or I always think like if you can put your hand in comfortably into the soil, it doesn't feel cool at all, then you're probably good to go. I'm just going to spread a little bit of bone meal in this area as well. This is espresso corn. It's a bicolor sweet corn. I tried it for the first time last year and I absolutely loved it. So I just like to space my corn plants roughly a hand span and a bit apart. I think that's probably close to about 8 inches, and I do them on a diagonal. So I'll just kind of zigzag the row Corn does best planted when it's planted in a grid, but if you can't plant it in a grid for some reason, say you just have a very narrow space and that's what you have to work with, so like a single row is all you have, you can, once the tassels start to fill out and you can kind of see the pollen hanging down off them, cut a tassel or two and just rub it over the silk, because you need pollen from the tassel to get on each silk, because each silk is connected to a kernel of corn, and that's what pollinates it and makes it fill out for you. So that's how you can get your corn pollinated if you don't have a good grid system and having poor pollination. There's a couple of ways that you can plant squash. Sometimes people will tell you to make a hill. Sometimes you just plant it flat in the ground. So I've done both ways. I don't know that either really makes a big difference. If you're having trouble, like if you want to plant early and you want to get that hill and get more heat built up to the soil, then that might be your way to go, just to get that hill of soil warmed up a little faster. You'll have more sun hitting in all directions. But just straight into the ground is fine too. Now I wasn't thinking, didn't really leave a space here to put my seeds, but I'm going to put three little plantings in here amongst where I planted the corn, and we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I've never grown this variety before. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to grow for me. But it's supposed to be a nice sized little buttercup squash, and it's supposed to be a little bit more of a compact plant. So the seeds down there, we'll go about halfway through the bed here. Some seeds there. And towards this end, we'll put some seeds here. And we'll just give it a swipe to make sure I cover all the holes up and work some of that bone meal in. I didn't really measure how deep I made any of these. I just put them kind of to my first knuckle of my finger. It's a nice windy day for planting. Okay, so I'm gonna put just some zinnias down the middle. There's no real reason other than I just like zinnias and I think they add nice color to the garden. So I'm just gonna put a little row through the center here, and hopefully I'll see them coming up through the squash. And then on this side of the bed, I'm going to be putting New Rocket pumpkin. I'm going to be putting a hill of that down your way, and then some Celebration winter squash. I'm going to put a hill of this down here. And I've started both of these inside earlier because we're getting really cold weather at the end of May. So I'll have a couple more plants of each of these to put out that'll hopefully be just a little bit more mature. But we'll start with these and see how they come up, and see where we go from there. Let's get these zinnias in. I'm just going to do a real rough little row here. These are California double giant zinnias, in case I didn't say. So I just put some more manure on this side of the bed for this squash. This bag of manure was really wet. So like I said, I have some other plants that I will probably be transplanting out here later on. So I'm going to make a mound just because it'll be easier for me to know exactly where I planted if they hadn't come up quite yet. When the others are ready to come out, I'll wait for them to have 1 or 2 sets of true leaves before I transplant them out. So in go the seeds for that, pat them down, and then I'll do the same thing on this side. And these again are the winter celebration squash. This is an acorn squash. So the winter celebration is an acorn squash, and it's supposed to be just a little bit more colorful, a little bit nicer prettier looking squash, so we'll see how it turns out. It really just has to taste good in the end. I thought we'd just stop at this bed real quick here and update you, because I've done some planting here and I haven't brought you along for it. So the last few days I've been out here, I put a row of parsnips under, I don't know if you can see, there's the cocoa liner here. And I've planted a few zinnias through the middle of this bed as well. I have the red trellis there is up. I'm going to be putting some cucumbers over there, but they're started in the house, and I'll let them get, again, 1 or 2 sets of true leaves before I bring them out here, just to make sure they get a good start. Like I said, we had an early spring, so I just wanted to make sure things were started early enough, but it was too cold to have them out here. Then I have these 2 frame trellis things here, and I've put pole beans on them. This is the first year I've ever grown pole beans, other than I've grown like scarlet runners, and they were more just for the flowers. So this time I'm actually trying to get some beans off of them. So I have a purple pole bean and a yellow, this one's called Golden Marie pole bean. And then I have just some summer squash between or along in the same row here. So I have some green zucchini there. This is called a summer squash surprise mix. So I believe it's all zucchini. I just don't know which one I'll get. It was a package of mixed varieties. And then I have a yellow zucchini behind me here in this mound. And then I think you can see there just a very small little mound there. That is a cougar pumpkin. So I'm thinking it'll probably be able to kind of sprawl through back this area, and I think the parsnips will be able to grow up between the vines there, and I think it should be all right. And it could also sprawl over here by the compost bins. So I think I have enough space for it there, but I guess I'll find out. So let's go over to where I'm going to be planting my my bush beans, and we'll get that space sorted. Those of you that follow my channel will have seen this space before. This is one of my fabric raised beds that I am trying out for the first time this year, and I did a video filling this one up, and that was probably close to 2 months ago, and I planted nothing in it yet. And I'm just growing a really nice crop of weeds that likely came out from the composted manure that I put in there. So I still need to pull those out. And then I just have had this little hoop tunnel mini greenhouse over top, and it's just been getting it nice and warm. I was thinking I was going to try and get my beans in here earlier, but then with that snap of very cold weather, I just didn't feel I wanted to risk it when that was coming along. Even with this tunnel on, I didn't think it would be enough protection. Like I said, beans really like warm weather and warm soils. So I'll probably leave this up just to try and get them going real well, and then once they're really coming up well out of the ground, I'll take this tunnel off and just let the beans grow. It'll be easier to harvest and that, but I think I'll be able to leave it up to plant, and I'll leave it up just to let them get established. Got a really good crop of weeds in here. Okay, so what I'm going to be growing in here is some yellow yellow beans. They're custard yellow beans. And then I have royal burgundy bush beans. I normally grow the Blue Lake bush bean, and last year I grew the burgundy, and I would say they're fairly similar in taste and growth, but I did prefer the burgundy, and part of what I preferred about the burgundy was just they were easier to pick because they were easy to see on the bush because they are a real burgundy color, and then they turn color when you cook them. They turn to a really vibrant green. It's actually, they're a lot prettier once you've cooked them. Then the blue beans I find kind of get washed out, almost not gray in color, but they just don't have an attractive color anymore once you've cooked them, whereas the burgundy ones still did, and they both taste good. I like to eat my beans raw as well. and they both taste good raw, so they had nice texture. And then I also have black turtle beans. I grew these last year, and these are the seeds I collected. This is about twice as much as far as weight goes of what I planted last year. I really liked them, and I think twice as many would be a good idea. So I think I'll plant all of these. I do have more saved from the original seeds if I decide I want to plant more, but that's where I'm going to start. So these bags have 8 kind of cells in them. So I think I'm going to start with the burgundy beans, and I'll do 3 of those. And then I'll probably do 2 of the yellow. We don't eat as many of the yellow beans. And then I'll probably do 3 of the black beans. But we'll see how far the beans get me. These little squares are about 18 by 18 inches. So I'm not sure how many beans I'll actually get in here. I didn't do the math. So we'll find out together. I think you could see I didn't do anything too fancy to measure out where the beans went. I just kind of roughly went along with my fingers and dibbed a little hole, kind of that spacing, which is approximately the 2 inches the bag calls for. And they're supposed to be about 1 inch deep. So, put one in there. I'll try and get them about 1 inch deep here. Okay, so that gave me roughly 90 plants in that area there, between this square and that one in the corner and this one up here. So I'm going to do these 2 beside each other with the yellow beans. So that leaves the black turtle beans to put in this front corner, and then these 2 back spots. I may have to go get, I don't think I brought out my other seed that was purchased last year. I don't think there's going to be enough beans in here. With this greenhouse on here, it's kind of pushing the sides of the bed in. It's not bad. I just have half a dozen or so seeds left out of those saved seeds I'd set aside for this year. So that was about what I figured. If I had double, then I would be pretty self-sufficient with the black beans over the winter. So thanks for coming along with me while I planted some of my warm season crops. I'm pretty happy with how many beans I got in this bed here. I think it's supposed to be about 6 feet by 3 feet in size, and yeah, I got pretty much the amount of beans that I think we'll probably need for the season in this little bed. Now, we don't eat a lot of beans, as I'm sure you can tell by what I planted. We mostly prefer to eat the yellow and the burgundy or green beans when they're fresher. I do freeze a few, but I find myself pushing them to the side in search of other vegetables out of the freezer drawer. So we prefer them definitely when they're fresher than after they've been frozen. And the black beans will be great to save, and they don't take up a lot of room, and you can dry them and save them to use throughout the winter, and they worked really well for that. So I was very happy with that. And then I have the pole beans this year as well that I've never done before, and I have quite a few plants there. So I think between the pole beans and these bush beans here, I should get a pretty good crop of beans for what we need. And then I've got lots of zucchini and pumpkins and squash, and even my corn planted now, so that's great. Today's the 31st of May, so that's pretty nice to be able to get all those things in the ground. And we're supposed to have a really hot week here, so things should really take off for me. Like I said, I'm gonna leave this little greenhouse over the beans for the next week or two until they all pop up. And then I'll probably take it off so they can get lots of air circulation. But I think if I close it up and let them have that heat, they should come up really quickly in this bed here and just make for an earlier crop. So we'll see how that goes. But I'll keep you posted on all of these crops as we go along. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.